All right, Lorin. I know that I'm going to try my very hardest to get your name correct every time that I speak to you. I really value trying to pronounce people's names the way that you are born with the name that you have. Actually, very side note, my partner, his name is Rafael, and the R is obviously silent. He's Brazilian. So I always try really hard to make sure that we get the right pronunciation, but I do apologize if I don't. But I'm really looking forward to chatting with you. You are doing some really cool stuff with Brazilian Jiu Jitsu martial arts and bringing in something that I think is a huge gap in misunderstanding in not Brazilian Jiu Jitsu itself, martial arts in general, sports in general, and I'm very much looking forward to chatting with you. So could you please tell me a little bit about yourself? Tell me how you've ended up in the space that you have, and we'll go from there.
Well, first, thank you, Ellie. I hope I pronounced it correctly.
Yes.
Yes.
You
Because
got it.
I think names, it's important. It's already the first way of connecting, which I'm
Yeah.
pretty sure you're also big on. Um, yeah, trauma-informed coaching or person-centered coaching, however you really want to call it, it's something that I think is missing everywhere because often we are so focused on getting our content done. We want to teach somebody something, but we do not focus on the how. And we also don't focus on the person in front of us. So, especially in martial arts, many people started kids because of bullying, women because of traumatic events in their past, or maybe they witnessed something or they want to kind of try to already do this so that it doesn't happen in the future. So many people have baggage. Now, also when we look at the marketing of martial arts in particular, it's often become more confident. Some that I find immorals, like don't be a victim, don't come to my martial arts classes. So what many martial arts coaches or businesses don't understand is that they are actively targeting vulnerable populations, aka
Yeah.
people that often have experienced, also men of course, a form of trauma or are still healing, dealing with it. And that's also with me was the case, that something happened to me and people were like, yeah, but Lorraine, you really need to learn how to defend yourself, so why don't you start a martial art? In retrospect, of course, it's kind of victim blaming, but still I took it to heart. I always loved martial arts, so why not? But then that coach was not trauma informed at all, even though I informed him I have PTSD, this and that. I was not safe. And especially back then in the Netherlands, I was like 48 kilos, tiny. They were all big guys. And for them, they were, one, not used to smaller bodies. Two, they didn't want to lose from a woman. So what would happen with sparring was that they would go full crazy on me, but I was then fighting them and traumatic flashbacks. So I was not present. So I could not stop the role or say anything because I'm not there. I would have
Yeah.
had to have the coach to tap in that regard for me, or a partner who realizes it. Upon talking, he was like, yeah, but you just need to tap or say something. And I'm like, but that's the whole point. I can't. And
Yeah.
back then, of course, I thought, okay, maybe it's me, whatever. I didn't know much about it at that point either. And I paused that one to study at Oxford University in England. And I continued Jiu Jitsu there. And funnily enough, there I met a fellow Australian in the trauma informed space, Danielle Beck. She offered trauma informed yoga. And that was kind of how some seeds came into my brain, because I realized at the BJ school that was not necessarily trauma informed, but they understood smaller bodies, and they just also just start at the beginning because I didn't know anything. I get just like thrown into this class. I remember I had to do quite some, for me, advanced things. I didn't really understand yet what it was all about. But there they just kind of started from somewhere. What is a guard? What is, just that I kind of start to understand what is the game of jiu-jitsu actually. And as that was in my brain, I later went then to Munich for my PhD about pain behavior, where also already neuroscience and psychology also came into play. And then we were training my husband. I met my husband there on the mats, fellow white belt back then. We opened our own school at Blue Belts because of sexual harassment of that coach. And we were
Oh,
like, you know what? I'm done. We were like, we're so done because my husband already had a black belt in traditional jiu-jitsu and we were teaching kids already there. And I
wow.
was like, I just can't. I can't stay under somebody who maybe be preying on these people, these
Yeah.
girls, these women I know, and on me and all that. So we opened our own school, and we were like, but we want this school to be safe. And that's where the trauma informed then came from, that we have a slightly different approach, but also that it's not even that hard. It's not even, you don't need to completely change it. There are so many misunderstandings that people are like, yeah, but you can't do this in competitive schools, or yeah, it's just not real jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, hold on. Like with your classes, we also adopt already like many years ago, like the constraints-led approach and other contemporary approaches to skill acquisition. And like we are training with resistance the whole time. When people
Yeah.
come to our classes, they're like, oh, these are different, they're tough. So there are many misconceptions that they think that it's filled with gloves, that you then don't, that they're fragile, that you can't touch or deal with these people because of their trauma. But that's absolutely not true. It's just that we create a safe environment where they also can train hard.
Because I can't tell you, like, I wish I could show you the goosebumps that I have on my body from this conversation already. Like, I value you so much. And thank you so much for doing what you're doing. Seriously, like, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. As a fellow woman, as a fellow person who trains Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, thank you. Thank you. Because I started, for similar reasons. It was self-defense reasons. I started for needing a space where I felt like I could do something. And I was fortunate, unfortunate, depending how you like to look at it. I was put into a position, thankfully, nothing too terrible happened with me, but it really scared me when I realized that I am just this little person who I can't do anything if somebody wants to do anything with me. And I went and I looked at, I didn't like being punched very much. I was like, I don't really enjoy that feeling. I'm not going to do that. And so then I thought, okay, where are some, oh, it sounds awful, but like, where is the most vulnerable places that I could be put? And I was like, on the ground, literally on the ground, in horrible places that you never want to think of. And I was like, great, I need to figure out how to get myself out of these places. And that's why I did jujitsu. And it changed my life. And I'm sure it's changed yours, and it's changed so many people who have had this. But it is something that I see is just such a lack of understanding of trauma and PTSD and women in general in training, because women come to the sport for so many different reasons. And, you have people who are just looking for that competitive thing, and that's totally cool. I envy those people because I'm like, I'm not that person. And I love seeing naturally athletic, gifted women who train hard and can do what they do. I think they're incredible. I'm not that. And I never claimed to be that. So then when I see people like myself, or I see people on the other side that are still doing Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, even though there's so many reasons not to do it for so many different reasons, I just think that is the most special thing that we can offer in the space that we have. So I'd love to know, and also amazing work for opening your own gym, because on I and we've had this little bit of a conversation already where it's like, I just don't think you need to have a black belt. And I value the black belt because I value the time that it takes, the effort, the everything that comes with it. But I don't think it's necessarily the be all and end all of owning a martial arts school. I'm not a black belt. My partner is a black belt in Lucha Libre. I'm not a black belt. And we're doing okay. We're getting there. We're doing all right. But I'd love to know, how do your how do your spaces run? How does this work? Please tell me everything.
So where to start? I mean, we are also brown belts by now
Yeah.
only. And I think maybe there is indeed this difference between like knowledge of and knowledge about. That I know also so many stories of people that they win many competitions at black belt. They are good. They have a lot of knowledge about jiu-jitsu, but they do not have so much knowledge of. And that is what you need when you're coaching, because we want to transfer it to our students, and not necessarily, I mean, I know we are like game based, but still, if I don't understand why I do what, I cannot create a good class.
Yeah.
And I think it's rare when you have high level competitors that are also great coaches. They do exist, but I think it's rather rare. And that's why I don't think you need a black belt to be a good coach, because when you understand the game of jiu-jitsu, you understand what it's needed to create environments where behaviors we want to see occur, then you're going to be a great coach.
Mm.
And I think that's also the next thing, is that by running a business, you are a marketeer, you're an entrepreneur, you need to sell your contracts, you need to talk with your people, you have software, you have all kinds, you have a space that you need to clean. There's so many aspects of being a gym owner, where actually the black belt is a small part of it, an important part of it, obviously. And I mean, there is a lot of time and effort that goes into it, but that is not enough to have a successful gym. There's more that comes to it. And I think that that's what slowly is changing in the environment. I feel that in the BJ community, people start realizing that it's not the same thing. Being able to submit everybody in competition doesn't mean that that's the per se the best coach to learn from. So I
Yeah.
think that's a positive thing. For us with trauma-informed coaching, it's literally train the person in front of you and meet them where they are at and not where we are at. Because how can I say, if I'm a brown belt, I cannot expect a completely newbie to meet me where I am at. It sounds so weird. You're like, hey, you cannot ask that of a white belt, right? So, but why are we doing that then when we
Mm.
are coaching? So we have like us an onboarding process. And I know I saw also on your website, you have a whole thing of what to anticipate. Well, how does a class run? What should parents realize and take into account? And with that, people understand what to expect, what to anticipate. And that already takes away a lot of fear. And it already creates some confidence, some safety, because it's always scary to go into a new space. It always is, regardless of whether we are kids or adults. It's always kind of scary. But when you write these things down, they know it. So we have phone calls before, like our system is like they can write a message and we call them, we get to know what are their goals, is it for them, is it for their children. Then we also explain to them what kind of emotions they can anticipate: frustration, maybe pure joy, but maybe also feeling a bit insecure, uncomfortable, because it's very touchy, it's very close contact, and especially also for women, that's not always easy. And when you name them, when they experience it, they know it's normal and it's
Yeah.
okay. And that already creates, from the onset, before you even really train much with you, they already kind of know that. So when they experience these things, they know where to place it. The same with chronic pain. That was kind of like my PhD was about that. When you cannot name it, when you don't understand why, and you feel sensations, then it's very hard to deal with. But when I know that I feel pain in my body because I did a crazy workout, it's okay. But if I feel pain even though I didn't do anything, then you're like, what's going on? And that's kind of what we want to take away, is to make it safe for them. Not easy, not in a simple sense that, oh, training is easy, but that they feel immediately safe when they enter. And actually that already starts with your website. How do you talk about things? It's about your messaging on internet, on your social media. What kind of footage do you share? What kind of language do you use? And that already pinpoints what kind of audience you attract. But even in the go hard, go home type of gyms, when you promise confidence, tough training, all these things, you still need a safe environment. You still need to, that people don't get injured, that they feel seen and heard, because otherwise you cannot guarantee your promise. And that's, I think, where then we start. And then, of course, based on the person itself. So I'm not a licensed therapist. So it is none of my business what actually happened to somebody. But what I do ask is their potential triggers or things that activate them. So if I
Yeah.
know for women, when, I don't know, mount or strangulation, the neck is difficult, and obviously we don't work with that yet. We will work towards it. But when I know that, I can create a good class for them. When I know
Mm.
that, I know with whom to pair them up or not to pair them up. So all I want is information so I can create the best environment for them, but I don't need to know what happened. So for most of my people, I mean, some are my friends, so I know more, but the rest, I have no idea what happened to them. I just know what may activate them. And sometimes we also work in that space after a while. They want some exposure and we just see how that goes. I mean, we also do work with licensed therapists as well, with some to just get like the best, but it's usually more one-on-one training. But in a regular class, when I know this, we can create the best classes, and that's how we do it. It's the same with kids, really. Whether it's bullying, doesn't really matter. Sometimes it's also that somebody has a stressful day and they come in and you realize they're off baseline. And then we just ask them, hey, how was your day? Or hey, I noticed. And that's how you get connection. That's how you create safety. And you have actually great community.
That's beautiful. It's interesting you just said what you said too at the end, because I mean, I'm actually in the middle of developing something at the moment. And one of my biggest things that I'm trying to get coaches to understand is that the idea of authority and respect has to come from a place of safety first. Because if they don't feel safe with you, they're not going to respond. You can yell as much as you want. It's not going to do anything. You can tell them to do 50 push-ups. They're probably going to do their 50 push-ups, but are they going to respect you? No. Are they going to feel safe with you? No. And when I start my classes, particularly my little ones, like my 4 to 5 year olds, I'll ask them about their day, because the second that they come in, I'm like, man, that kid didn't have a sleep today. And I know that. I can pick it from a mile away. But they come on the mats, I'm like, hands up if you went to kindy today. Some of them will put their hand up. Okay, if you went to kindy, I now already know that you've had a big day. Okay, what'd you eat at school today? And some of them will be like, I didn't like lunch. Great, so now that I know you've been at kindy and you haven't eaten anything today, now I'm in for a treat. And I think that it doesn't have to feel scary or overcomplicated when you're just trying to understand and connect. All it needs to be is that you're willing to see exactly what you're saying, willing to see the person as the person that's in front of you and not just the number or the person in the line that is another member in your gym. And that 10 seconds that it took you to ask, how was kindy today and did you eat your lunch? You're automatically going to feel less stressed when in the middle of the session they're falling apart and you're questioning yourself and your own abilities as a coach. All of a sudden it's like, oh, this isn't about me. This is something that's happening off the mats. And now I can give myself grace and I can give that child a little bit of understanding and adapt. Please adapt to what they need at that moment. You know, maybe they need to go and sit off the sidelines and eat some popcorn. Let them go and do it. It's okay. You know?
I think I think that coaches don't realize that when people don't feel safe, learning is not going to take place, or at least not optimally at all. It's the same with healing. That's why, in my view, constraint-led approach and trauma informed coaching go hand in hand. We can dive into that later if you wish. But the
Please.
the the thing is that if we know healing won't take place when you're still in a state of activation or when you feel unsafe. Why? Also because you're in survival. When you're busy in survival, you're not busy with learning or healing. So, and also the next thing is the coach is 50% of the equation and the student is the 50% of the equation. Now, if I'm only talking and I don't ask them questions, they know a lot about me, but I don't know anything about them. So how can I teach them to the best of my ability when I don't know them? For
Yeah.
that, I need to ask them questions. I need to connect with them. I need to know their baseline. Because when a kid completely has a meltdown, some coaches may get upset or angry, like, why are you not listening? But we need to know their baseline. Because when we indeed know this is how they quote unquote normally are, and hey, they deviate from that, well, probably I should ask how their day was if I have not done that already, because you do it already in advance. So okay, when this kid gets a meltdown, that is actually appropriate for the type of day that kid had. So it is still normal. It's off base, as in how they are when they are kind of well fed and they had some sleep. But we understand where their behavior come from, and then we can also navigate it, because nobody really just wants to misbehave just for the fun of it. Like, how often do we sometimes lash out and we are ashamed of that afterwards? And I think that coaches just don't understand that If you want the best athletes, if you are really like competitive and you want the best ones, start with a lot of smiles, safety, and fun. When you have these things and you know their baseline, then you will create the best thing. It's the same like if I go to fitness and say I have already big arms, but I have tiny legs. If I'm gonna do more arms because the PT didn't look at me, that's not gonna maybe reach my goal. You have to look at them. Maybe they need more leg work. You have to look at them and you have to ask questions so you get to know them. Otherwise, it's just you, but that's not gonna go far. And then indeed, even if you don't shout at them, but you just talk all the time and whatever, you will lose respect simply because they can't resonate with you.
Yeah. I think that's such a big part is, yeah, the idea of like, even if you're not shouting, just being able to connect. Just, it's so funny. My partner, when we were opening the gym, he wanted nothing to do with the kids' classes. So my background was education for a really long time, and he was like, it's all yours. I was like, okay, sure, no worries. I would love that. I'm happy to do this. And little by little, he started teaching some of the kids' classes. And it's brought out a part of him that I didn't even know. From the person that was when we started to the person that I see now with him, he's so playful and funny with the kids, and he genuinely loves it so much and cares so, so deeply for the kids that are at our gym. And I can see that the reason that the kids love him is because he connects with them in a way that many of our other coaches are still learning how to do that. It is a skill. It's not something you just wake up one day and you're like, I'm going to have a full-blown conversation with some 5-year-olds and they're going to love me, because that's it's not how it works. It is something you develop. But seeing what he's been able to do with them, that's just, I don't know, it makes me appreciate him more because of that. I think it's so special to see that side of him when he's not normally, he's very serious. This is his like way of being. And recently with the coaches that we have in our gym, I'm working to be able to like take a little bit of a step back from some of the kids' classes. My partner and I did it all by ourselves for 2 years, and now we're like, okay, we're going to need some other people to be doing some stuff here. So we've taken a bit of a step back. I've coached them over the course of a year to feel confident, which is another whole thing about just throwing somebody in there that doesn't know what they're doing. But I wanted them to feel safe to teach, because my coaches need to feel safe too. And they're still developing that skill, and I can see that they're trying to find their own unique way of connecting, because in the beginning they would try to copy the same way things that I would do or the same things that my partner would do, and it helps, but it's not authentic to who you are as the person, and it's not going to look the same way for every person. You just got to find that like little thing that connects, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that Kabir Baf said indeed that when he introduces new coaches for the first couple of weeks or months, even, all they do is learning their names, tying their belts, connecting with them. They're not even correcting, they're doing nothing of the teaching part. All they do is connecting. Because when they connect with the kids, they get to know them, they see indeed what is their baseline, how is the dynamic, then they will know how to teach quite quickly afterwards because the connection is there. It's so much easier to talk to a friend, right, that you connect with, than to somebody you're not sure about whether they start, I don't know, screaming and crying every second, right? So, or potentially. So I think that was one of those things also where I'm like, yeah, that's a very good one. It's like just introduce them first in the environment so they become part of the environment. And then I think it's easier when they take over eventually.
Yeah, and I think that was something that was really important for me to do as and I guess I was a little bit like, oh, the gym's my baby, and I'm a bit, I guess I don't like to say that I'm a control freak, but I did want a certain level and a certain standard, and I was aware that that standard was probably quite high, but I think it was there for a reason, and I was willing to support my coaches in every way for them to feel that they could. And the same thing, like just come in, just be there, help them to feel like they've got a friend to talk to, sit on the mats, have a chat, tie their belts. I think I think that is such an underused moment where you are just helping a child to figure out how to tie their belt. Like, it's so little, but I think it's really a moment that's very valuable. Especially, actually even tonight, I had my kids' class this afternoon, and I said to them, I was like, I actually don't care if your belt is not tied perfectly. It If your belt is not tied perfectly, to me, that is not what's important. All I want you to do is just stand with us for the next minute and just practice trying to do it yourself. And it's like learning to tie your shoes. You try a few times, it doesn't work. Eventually, you're going to get it. But if we all stand together and we all just, I'll do mine, you do yours, I don't think there's any harm in a untied belt.
No, and I mean, there are enough adults that can't tie their belts either.
Oh
Just
my
saying.
goodness.
Just saying.
Mind
Yeah,
you, I sometimes even my belt, my partner's like, Matt, are you still a white belt? How do you not know how to tie a belt? I'm like, I do, but it just comes undone all the time. I haven't mastered the perfect sort of crossing it all the way under and everything like that.
I mean, there's many reasons why people love nogi. Like you do not have to do it.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, really good point for that. Okay, let's get into a really important part here because I know that you use CLA and that makes me really happy. I love CLA and I think that the way that the training happens, particularly for the children, it just works so well. It it's just I don't know. There's nothing else I can say. It just works. But can you tell me did you start with CLA at your gym, or did you just make the switch at a certain point? Like, how did you do this?
So our gym is now open for 7.5 years. So the first two was technique training. But so for 5 years we're now busy with it. We found it through trauma informed coaching because um I had a lady self-defense group, and that were women that could get activated. It was a very specific group. So I learned that they can do intense training. It's just that their rational brain has to remain online. So essentially, with when somebody has an activation, like we have like the limbic systems and all that, but we want the rational brain to kind of hover over, because if it flips off, then our reptilian brain just like it just takes over, but then we have no control over it because thought decision making is the rational brain. So we want to have it always somehow connected. But if I expose them to something too challenging and flip it off, I don't know what happens. Then you get freeze, crying, fun, anger, you get these activations. So I realized I need to keep it playful. So when I lower the stakes, it's easier for them to do difficult tasks while still remaining online. And that's also where healing and learning happens. And me being an academic, we were just like also diving into that. So step by step, we found um, ecological psychology, and then of course movement ecological dynamics, and then we found the constraints-led approach. And it was all before Rob Gray had all those books and all these things. Like I had sometimes just some other academic friends who could download some papers, academic papers for us, and it was not so easy because the jargon is not easy, and it takes a while to get acquainted with what it's complex. But what we also noticed was that we had the ladies' course was usually like 8 weeks of 90 minutes, and within those 8 weeks they got good. And if I
Yes.
compared them with those that still did the traditional step by step, I was like, how come they don't learn? Why don't they get as good? Because we thought, okay, from a self-defense perspective, you don't have a ref, you don't have clear rules, you don't know what's going to happen, so step-by-step tricks does not work. They need to be able to go from A to B. So without realizing it, we kind of did already constraints-led based games we created. Maybe not as well defined as we would do it now, but we kind of, with the limited understanding, just understanding how trauma works, we were like, yeah. So we had more things like, oh, you're in this corner, that's the exit to safety, you need to get your way there, you're allowed to whatever, maybe kicks, maybe not, maybe it's only whatever we had. And then constraints, then what type of tools they had. But then we realized how quickly they got good. So when some would go into our regular classes, we realized like, why are they giving people that are training so much longer so much trouble in just 8 weeks time? That's what's happening. And that then, of course, when we started getting more academic background, the literature, and we started to understand what was happening with the perception action coupling, all this stuff, that's when we never looked back and changed that then in also our regular classes. And now each time when I look at the new generation white belts we have now, regardless of age. I mean, we also have 58 year old who his body is already busted from a life of work. Within 3 months, he would legitimately beat my blue belt, but really he would. And it's amazing. So for us, I'm like, it's the way to go. But for trauma informed also, it's like this. When I give top down instruction, I tell you what to do. I'm not helping you with self autonomy. But that's exactly what people with healing with trauma need, is that because their choice was taken away. They had no choice. Something happened to them. So if I again happen to them by saying, no, you need to do it like this. I want your hand here. I want your foot there. I'm again doing top down. I'm not helping them with self autonomy. Whereas with the CLA approach, I don't tell them how they get somewhere. I just want them to do something, to do a task. But how they do it, that's up to them. So there's choice. That's number one. What you really want is that they have choice, that there's no top down per se, because also that's what I found always so harsh to see when you have somebody really trying a specific scripted technique, but it didn't work. That's disheartening. You do martial arts, but then when it comes to the sparring bit, you can't apply it. That's disheartening because you think you're doing something, you think you're investing in all that, but then when it's being tested, you're like, oh, I still can't do it. So that's also not helping with confidence and self-autonomy at all. Whereas with the COA, there's always feedback. You know whether something works or not with a specific partner. You know it. So that's also how you build much more confidence, because they know I did this, not per se because I said so. That's like one. Well, the other thing is like what to anticipate. Usually, we always kind of say, okay, today we're going to work on this. So people know that already kind of in their brains. But because it's always so playful, their rational brain remains online. And that's the main thing why I believe it goes hand in hand. And again, it's not top down. It's the hierarchy is just much more like round table kind of, because we go in, we also constrain games that a white belt will tap me when constrained well enough. So everybody taps everybody all the time anyway. So there's also not this thing like, oh, I need to tap this person. We do it all the time anyways. So also instead of, you change their mindset from I need to win or I need to be good at XYZ, you're like, oh, cool, I want to solve this problem. So it's an external focus. And that's the next thing. People with trauma, I don't want them to really have internal focus because I don't know where they are going to go. I don't know
Yeah.
where they are because I don't want them to focus. In this instance, I don't want them to focus internally and want them to focus externally. So when they focus more rather on where they have to place their hands, and left and right is also for adults still very difficult. When I ask them to pin the shoulders of their partner, that is very clear, and they focus on what the partner is doing. So in that regard, the partner helps them to remain in the present, and that's not a thing that people with trauma need. So from in my view, that's why ever since that, our school is just now really thriving culture wise.
That is incredible. I actually don't have much, I don't know what to say, which doesn't happen to me often, but seriously, that is given me a lot to think about. I'm in the middle of doing my postgrad in psychology, so I'm very much at like the beginning of this whole journey of understanding this. So for me, even, yeah, really understanding how the brain switch from, your prefrontal to your limbic, like the whole thing. I don't know why I hadn't made that connection with adults when I do it all day, every day with kids. How bizarre is that? It's just like opened my mind completely to something new. Thank you. Okay, so I had questions, but I have other questions now. So I would love to know, how do you, is it just your partner and yourself coaching? Do you have other coaches?
We definitely have some that help us, some like every week, but
Yeah.
it's mostly my husband and me. Yeah.
Okay, and do the other coaches, do they have a trauma-informed background, did you coach them to teach them how to do this? And what does that process look like?
So I have then, of course, the Thrive Dive method. It's like what every coach can buy just to learn how to implement that. So they have access to that. But we also have like yearly meetings where we sit down, we do something fun. Like last year, we did laser tag and we sat down and we just focus on specific things. But because we integrate them also first in our classes, um, they also do it without realizing that they do it. I mean, we do pinpoint and make things apparent, but they are also used like, yeah, but that's how we do. We check in with people, we play with people. So it kind of goes automatically. And also because it's like you lead by example, right? We ask how people are doing, how was their day? Or like usually with kids, I don't want to ask yes and no questions. I want to ask open-ended questions, like kind of like what was the coolest thing you did this weekend? Something that they need to think about, something instead of hey, did you have a good weekend? Then they're like, yeah or no, but that doesn't tell me much really.
Yeah.
Um, but since they see us do it, they also do it. And also even among the adults, I realize now that if often I don't even know when one of the students sometimes something is off, but they just when they realize it, they write each other. So then sometimes I hear through the grapevine also what they're so often they already solve many problems among themselves, not necessarily what they have with each other, but if there's something happening in life, because we do it with them, so they do it also with their teammates, and that's what you just can see. So we do say it's explicitly, but we just see that they are doing it already.
Yeah, you've built the culture that then naturally
Yeah,
it flows all the way through.
yeah.
That's amazing. So, is your partner his what was his background? Did he also have a trauma-informed background? Like I understand that you did your PhD studies and things. What was he? How did he get in this?
So, I mean, he's an electrical engineer, but he has
Yeah.
been teaching in the traditional jiu-jitsu since he was like 15 or 16. And there you also need to do all kinds, because, in Germany, bureaucracy is a big thing. So you have all kinds of licenses that you have to do and blah, blah. So, I mean, I don't think they necessarily go into trauma from coaching, but definitely they do talk about safety and these things. So he did learn some things. I don't think it sticks a lot per se, because many people that definitely do harm, they all have these licenses, but at least it was not a completely foreign concept. And then also I think us coming together, he also learning of my story and all that, that's just kind of like how that developed also, because um I mean, I really transformed my PhD much more now on a hands-on topic, let's say, than because I also didn't want to stay in academia for that reason. And yeah, he's just like part of it and does also his thing, because he also is very good and deep in the CLA. And I mean, he started first really diving into the literature and all that. So I think we
Mm.
complement each other there very well.
Yeah, it really does sound like it. And my partner is the same. I mean, he grew up in Brazil in a completely different world and to anything that I had ever experienced or knew. And traditional teaching is the backbone of obviously Brazilian Jiu Jitsu and everything that we did and we learned. And I trained over there myself and experienced that firsthand of it's tough. Like it was really, really tough training. And I have a lot of respect for it. But when we came back from Brazil and my partner really started to just, he was the one that was like, I'm going to learn everything there is about this. It was early 2023. And he was like, I'm just going to learn everything that I can. Okay, I had no idea what he was talking about. Not a clue. And then he started to implement it with me. And I was like, okay, this is actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
And I saw the straight away the link between early childhood education and play-based learning and the idea of CLA. And I was like, oh, this makes so much more sense for teaching kids than what we see in very traditional schooling here in Australia, where it's like, I'm going to give you the information and you're going to take my information and then you're going to use it and I'm going to test you on it. I couldn't help but see the thing here that I was like, nah, this doesn't make sense to me. 100% we need to be using CLA in games. And exactly like what you said with the women who were in your self-defense course, I cannot believe how fast our kids were learning jujitsu and doing things that there is just no other explanation for, because they were not confined into what they weren't even overthinking it. They were just moving so much more naturally. And the same thing, like I have this lovely woman in my class, in my adults class, and she's probably been training a year now, but she only just trains twice a week. And when we play games, she beats me. Like, there's no doubt about it. But there's no ego there. It literally removes the ego, because you cannot do what we do with CLA and still have an ego, because you can be tapped by anyone. And it also does put you into a situation where, if someone has your back, you are already at a disadvantage. So if you are thinking that you're still going to win when someone has your chest and back connection and two hooks in, then you need to check yourself a little bit, because you might win every now and then, but you're probably not going to. So you have to remove that ego. And yeah, the whole idea of CLA has completely just changed the way that I have thought about it, in so many different ways. So I'd love to see how you plan and implement kids classes with it in particular. How does a kids class look when you plan with CLA?
So we always, and I saw also that you posted it actually, that you just want to start and kind of end the same way, or you have like something fixed. So we have a little meditation really. So we
Cool.
just sit down, kind of like the old school Japanese way, where I like it because they know, okay, this is how we start, this is how we end. And they do focus on their breathing. And also, fun fact, when you have those that kind of always fool around, just set them in front and tell them that they have to lead it, because you have some Japanese commands. But they will, they're all like very certain. But parents, they're like, huh? Because when they come, they just run around, play with each other, super loud, utterly chaotic. But when we say it's time, line up, they line up, and then it's quiet. Most times, quiet. So that, because they arrive, I think arriving is very important for adults too, but like kids. We have one cheat, and that's like that we have a therapy dog, Yuki, so that also really helps. Um, so it's
I
like
need to
a
know about Yuki. I'm going to have to ask you about Yuki soon.
we'll talk about Yuki. And yeah, then we usually, so we have 3 to 5 years, it's like a ninja program. So there we don't do jiu-jitsu per se. It's much more movement exploration, because early specialization doesn't really work anyways. But it's that we really just explore what they all can do. So we built these ninja parkours and all these things. And what these little ones can do at one point, I'm like, wow, just wow. Um, so there we also start and end the same way, but there we do a lot of animal drills, this kind of stuff. When we have the 5 to 8, we usually have some animal drills because they're fun and they can get some excess energy out that they have from sitting all day or having to do whatever. And or we play a group game, something where they have also to work together or something like that, just to kind of get some excess energy out, because usually we kind of try to go up down to kind of to balance out their nervous system. And then we try to play the whole game of jiu-jitsu in the class, so it's pretty fast paced, but we do usually something stand up, we do something pinning or passing, and then something submission based, not always, but and then depending what we do, or if we're gearing towards a tournament, we will also have some more positional sparring also then, and then like normal rounds, and then usually we play a game again in the end, and then we have the meditation, and that's like 60 minutes, give or take. So that's kind of like how it is. But also often I have something in my mind, but then I see they need something else, or I see that they do different things, and I'm like, okay, it's an opportunity. And then sometimes then I also just am willing to throw it out of the window, and I'm like, okay, well, I wanted to do this, but it seems we can do this now, and that's also fine for me, because I mean, it's about their fun and learning, and if they learn something, I'm happy.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's, yeah, if they learn something, that's great. If they're having fun, Even better. That's the thing that I want them to have. If they go through that whole session and they don't remember any jiu-jitsu, but they had a really, really good time, then they probably do remember some jiu-jitsu. Let's be real. But that's the most important part for me. And yeah, it's the same. Your classes sound very similar to ours, except we don't have the meditation part. Um, but I would love to implement that. I think that I could be pushing my boundaries a little bit if I try to implement that with some of our other coaches, but I'll get there eventually. But yeah, they sound very similar in the way that we run our classes. And I like to ask that because the thing that I've realized about CLA is that it can be interpreted in so many different ways. And the amount of coaches that I talk to, and some use CLA in a very competition focused way, and it almost becomes systematic, which I don't know. Regardless, that's where it goes to. And then I speak to others and they have a bit more of a hybrid method where they use it this way,
Yeah.
which is a whole other conversation as well. And then you just have the ones who are like, this is just really fun and it works. And this is why we do it like this. We can clearly see that there's the beneficial reasons of why we have it. And you can say one thing and it could be interpreted three different ways. And three different people will take it back into their own academy and use it in their own way, which can be a positive. It can also, I think, sometimes hinder our progress a little bit with CLA and trying to get people to understand what it is that we're doing and why we do it, and that it's not positional sparring. But we'll leave that like argument to the
Yeah.
to the ones who really like to argue that. Okay, but yeah, it does sound very similar in the way that we do it. And I love when I sit down with my kids and I'll be like, does anyone know what we're going to do today? And then they'll tell me something that I'm like, that was not my plan at all. But I actually really like your idea. Like, I play this game and then we'll sit down and be like, okay, so we're going to do this. And they're like, oh, I really wanted to do this. And I'll be like, okay, let's do that. Why not? You want to do that? Does anyone else want to do that? And then usually they're all like, yeah, I want to do that. Cool, let's go with it. That's my whole plan is just going out the window, but I'm going to roll with your plan. Let's do it.
Yeah. But also, I think our little ninjas, for instance, they also create games. Like they create this game. We had these pom-poms, and at one point I told them that they had to return it, and one kid didn't. And then another kid, trying to be the good kid, the hero, wanted to steal them to give it to me. So the kid was really in turtle position,
Yeah.
guarding it. And then I was like, huh. So then we created this whole game. You have the dragon, there are the dragon eggs, and the knight wants to steal them, but the dragon mother doesn't want that. And later we also added things that, that the only moment that the dragon mother can get the eggs is when she wants to fly off. So we had all kinds of constraints, but like it was amazing because we then I saw that and I was like, okay, let's try this with the bigger ones. And then they start to do like, instead of before, when I told them to, when they could get to the back or roll them over on their shoulders or whatever for a pin, they started to finally do angles, because sometimes it's so hard to be very positive, like,
Oh,
yeah, you want angles, but because they so want those eggs, these pom-poms, they tried from everywhere, and all of a sudden you had push pull, all of these things happened just because I told them get those eggs, and to the other one, don't get the eggs. So in turtle, the mothers were not allowed the dragons to hold their eggs. So either they got very tight, or some also were like, yeah, well, if I hold the hands from my partner, then they can't get it either. Yes. So that all happened without me just saying, yeah, you want the eggs, you don't want them to get the eggs. That was kind of it. And it was amazing what happened, how good they got also with just getting up, flying away, and all these things. And I mean, like, we even played with the adults also at times. And it's like, they looked at me first, but then they were like, oh, this is fun. But they did good things, and it does transfer because they already played it. So they know, they learned how to move somebody's body. So yeah,
yeah.
so we are all,
I
for the
love
games.
this. I'm gonna get some pom-poms because I really want to try this myself. Actually, I think that sounds like such a fun game. And I think, yeah, the idea of the adults doing things too. Adults want to have fun too.
They
They've
do.
just
They
spent
need
the
it.
whole day at work. They need to be able to have a space where they can let go of everything that's happening in their lives as well. And I do think that CLA provides a space for you to kind of be a kid again. It feels more, I don't know, kid-like in a way, but in a not in a negative way, in a way that it's like it brings out that inner child that really just wants to feel loved and valued and like you can have fun and it's okay. And when we do the games, I think I even had, when I posted a little while ago, I posted about cops and robbers game
Yeah.
with my kids. Whatever. They're doing this game. But I had people message me and they're like, I did this with my adults. And they said it was the most fun that they've had. And these are people who they still use a traditional method, which is totally fine. But they said that they had had so much fun doing this cops and robbers game. And I was like, yeah, imagine how much fun they'd have if you let them play games all the time. But in all seriousness, they just enjoyed it. And that's the cool part is that you just have fun.
Especially with adults when they come in, they also need to
Yeah.
arrive, same as kids. And that's why we also definitely play a lot. We play a lot of games, and some are really like silly, some have no transfer, as like absolutely not, it's just for fun. But many others, they also already do definitely jiu-jitsu. It's just like for good laughs, and then you can just see, oh, they could kind of let go of the daily
Yeah.
stressors, work, and then they are ready. Because again, when we feel safe, when we have fun, that's where creativity happens. And when creativity happens, well, excellence is going to happen. And that's what we want, essentially. And so I'm like, like you, I'm also like, why? But I mean, I do understand with other coaches, like it's hard to when you're so used to doing a specific mode of teaching, it's hard to change. Like for us it was easier because we were blue belts, we didn't know so much, and we were also never really bent on any specific thing, and we were always very playful because we were teaching kids. That's how we started, was teaching kids. So we always rolled with them and played with them anyways. So I think we were always playful, and that's why I think it resonated with us also. But we also didn't have 20 years of drilling experience either. So I do understand for some that they may feel safer with a hybrid version or this and that. Um, but by the end of the day, I will say this: if a traditional school would if I would have fun there and the COA school would not give me fun, I would definitely go to the traditional one, because by the end of the day, for me, it is about fun. I just know that fun and COA go hand in hand. But for me, I think indeed the majority of our members, they don't compete, they're not going to be the next ADCC champion. So
Mm.
the majority just come there because they want to do something for their mind and for their bodies and de-stress and have fun and community. So that's what they want. So I also think that we should also bear that in mind as coaches, that it's not all preparing them for the next world championship.
Yeah. That's such a big part of, I think, kids jiu-jitsu that and you mentioned it before, the idea of early specialization. And it scares me a little bit sometimes when I look at social media, and in particular in my space, because my space is kids jiu-jitsu and I have to be careful in the space that I'm in because there are many kids jiu-jitsu pages that are following me for many different reasons. It's obviously the parents that are following me. And I have to be aware sometimes that I allow parents to be what they need to be in their space. You have a right to do whatever you want to do with your child. And I also have to understand that coaches are coaching for different reasons. And those kids, if the parents are there, they support it. If the coach is there, they support it. If the kid is on board with their understanding of what they're actually getting themselves into and they support it, then by all means, like, okay, if you want to train to be an ADCC champion, go for it. By all means. But please have fun. Please don't take the fun out of it for them. I obviously personally don't believe in early specialization, but as long as you are still creating a space where they have fun and they get to train to be ADCC champion, that is like the lovely middle ground that I would love to see a lot of places adapt. And I do think social media can be a bit of a scary place in that way because we are only seeing the
Yeah.
top 1%, and we are only seeing the kids when they're winning their medals or when they're doing really cool things on the mats. And yeah, that can be a bit of a scary place sometimes.
Yeah, because many coaches, I hardly see footage of the chaotic kids classes, but most classes are chaotic and loud.
Yeah.
um and it nothing, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but I mean that's also truth of it. Like when I see, where they like beautifully sitting there, kind of as if they are zen or something, I'm like, that's not very representative. um and because also you want stuff to happen, right? I don't want them to sit still, whatever that they do in school also. So what we see in social media is also not very representative of what is actually happening. And I have a PDF. I can also send it to you. I worked that together with other behavioral people about how, as parents, do you support your kid in sports,
Oh,
and
I'd
then
love
in
to see
particular
that.
martial arts. And there, it's also studies say, I think it's 70%, but by the age of 11 or 13, 70% already stop because it's no fun.
Yeah.
It is no fun. Because, and often when you think back of when a child starts and you're a parent, you, everything the child does, kind of, you're like, oh my god, it is so cool. But it won't, because fun is for you important. But at some point, when some medals start coming in and stuff, all of a sudden many parents don't see the fun part as much anymore. They're focused on that one. And I'm like, no, you want to keep bear in mind that fun probably was the starting point, or maybe because of bullying, but it became fun, something like this. But you want that to keep. For me, medals are bonus, that's like kind of like we offer that to the gods, so to speak. Not that I'm religious per se, but like I'm like, it's bonus, it's hard work, it's a nice thing, but it's not why we do it. And
Mm.
it's just a good space where you just can test yourself, try things out, whatever. But for the rest, I'm like, you want it to be that it's fun, because if it's not fun, they will quit, no matter how good they are, even if they would become the best of the best. If they quit, they won't. And that has everything to do with fun. So in that PDF, I talk about how do you connect with your kid? Also, how do you talk with your kid when they lost and it was tough for them? Also, how do you, because often we project also our fears and things and what happened in our life, and especially with parents that have that. I mean, I understand that, I'm not judging them, but it happens. So
Mm.
we need to get to know ourselves, and then we need to, of course, know our kid and what type of communication helps for them. Some need some space to cool off, some can immediately talk, whatever. But I dive into that, and then we also have some prompts, things that you can just fill in, that kids can fill in step by step. And we also give that to our coaches, so that and parents, so that they just can go through it and remember that, because it's just
Yeah.
important. So I would also love to have your feedback on that, because it can always be better. But that's like something that we are also really big on, is like, it needs to be fun, because we know statistically, usually by the age of 11 or 13 or so, 70% of kids, they stop. And especially girls, after that, for a long time, they don't do sports. So
Yeah.
also when we were in April, I believe we were in high school, even a sports high school. But in the group, when you ask what they were doing, most of the boys, they were all doing some sports, but there were still quite some girls that did not.
Mm.
And it's interesting, because then I was reminded of that statistics, that I'm like, yeah, they also get more self-aware, body awareness, all these things. And for some reason, sports doesn't seem so alluring to them.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that was me as a teenager. Like I mean, to be fair, I was never very athletically gifted in the first place, but I do remember being very self-aware by the age of 13, where I was like, I'm not very good at this, so I'm just not going to try, and then I'm just not going to do anything. And if somebody from high school saw what I'm doing now, I think they would literally piss themselves laughing because they would be like, this is not the person that we knew in high school. Because I was so self conscious of making a mistake in my sport. And I was so scared of being judged or embarrassed, or I just didn't do it at all. And I think that if I had have been able to find a space where something really connected with me and I felt safe and supported and I was having fun, I probably would have stuck to it. And I wish that thing was jujitsu. I mean, hindsight's one of those things, isn't it? We all wish that we started younger.
Yes.
Because, you see the kids now that have been 16, 17 years old, but they've been training since they're 3
Yeah.
and they're insane. They're amazing.
They are amazing.
So cool. And I imagine you probably do see this a little bit since your gym has been open for such a long time now. You would see the progression of the kids as they come through. Yeah.
They're so good. I mean, they're often youth I fear more than adults. Like not in a
Oh,
negative way,
yeah.
in a positive sense. When I
Yeah.
roll with them, there are some that I mean, we have also one guy. He's 16 now, but for since 2 years, he's been lifting and doing calisthenics 6 days a week. He's like a little bit heavier than me, but not much. And I mean, like, oh my God. Like, I mean, he inspired me to do also more strength training because, but I mean, he doesn't outmuscle you per se, but he used it in the right moments. It's so
Yeah.
well done. But I mean, and also he has a very good fight IQ and he's very creative. So it's like when you look at it, I'm like, just wow, just wow.
Yeah. I remember I used to train with this boy. He would be a man now, but he was a boy. I met him when I think he was 12. So he hadn't gone through puberty yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I would train with him a lot because he was kind of my size. It was easy to train with him. And then I remember him going through puberty and his legs became like tree trunks. They were just huge. But because he was still growing, he actually wasn't aware that his legs were like tree trunks and that he had grown. So he still was training the same way that he was when he was a boy, but now he had man strength. And I was like, I'm in trouble. Now you're giving me a really hard time because when I'm locked in your clothes guard, I think I'm going to die. I'm suffocated. Like it just, yeah. So teenagers scare me way more than the adults do in terms of the skill level that we're seeing
Yeah,
these days. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's really cool. So if somebody would like to understand trauma-informed coaching and I guess maybe even just being more mindful in the way that they are connecting with students, coaching them, where should they start? What's a good place for them to start?
So what we have some free offerings. Obviously, there are also other pages that also do trauma informed coaching, but we have for free. It's like 3 videos, 90 minutes a maximum, where I just explain some key principles of trauma informed coaching and also our ABC first, mental aid emergency protocol. Where if somebody like when somebody has a physical thing on the mats, we all know kind of what to do, but when it's mental, we don't. And there I talk about what if somebody has a traumatic activation or trigger and how do you bring them back safely, as there are a bunch of do's and don'ts. And so I talk you through that. Obviously, that is means when it already happened on the mats. I mean, we have also a paid course, and there we go very deep into how the brain works, but also how you can kind of override the amygdala response. So through with martial arts, so that if say mount is a problematic position for someone, um, the moment they're in there, their amygdala is like no go, and then they have their fear response, whichever that one may be. But when we can create some very rewarding new associations with that, so we have new memories and new sensory input that goes into the amygdala, we can kind of override that response, or at least the amygdala knows, okay, but there's good and there's bad, so there won't be immediately this fear or fight or flight, whatever response. And we just dive deeper into that, how you can really do that. And of course, we focus a lot on the coach itself, because even when you know everything there is to know about trauma from coaching or kids coaching, when you're not approachable, when you don't connect, it's not going to work. And then the other one, the last pillar is really safeguarding. Safeguarding both in physical things. How can you make your school safer? Also, what are potential safety gaps that you need to, that every school is a little different? Do you have a bit a scary neighborhood where your gym is? Like, you just need to know what are possible problems. But also things like, when you go to a tournament, do you travel alone with kids? Do you, if there's a party, is there alcohol involved? Just these kind of things that you maybe don't think about, but also to create your also a protocol. If somebody approaches to you with a XYZ happened, how do you proceed? So that are like things that we don't all do in the paid course. But for the rest, there are many online free things. We have also some handouts. There is Safe Sports. There are all kinds of other accounts where you have also a whole list of additional free resources where you can get started. Obviously, as with everything, if you really want to get good at it, you have to invest in it. You have to spend time with it. That's always the same. But to get started, there are plenty of free resources with Safe Sport, with Off the Zone, then where you can get an idea where to look and figure out what it is that your school needs, because every school is different.
Yeah. Do you see, man, I could talk to you all day. Do you see, I will get sort of towards the end of it from here, but do you see a difference in culturally the response? Like, I know that you're in Netherlands, correct?
So I'm Dutch, but we are in Germany.
You're in Germany. Yeah, I remember because you mentioned Germany, then you mentioned Netherlands. Yeah. So you're in Germany. And I assume that you do see people from around the world. I know you've had conversations with Greg and a few other people as well. Do you see a difference in the way people respond to trauma-informed coaching culturally?
Well, there is, language is a thing. I mean, many men do not necessarily like trauma informed coaching. They're like, "Hee." So in the beginning, I would attract more women with these kind of things because they have usually thought about it, realized that they struggle with things. But I culturally, by the end of the day, I think everybody likes it when people are kind to you and you meet them where they are at. And I mean, I know from my PhD with pain, for instance, I know that Muslim cultures, they have, like, we all understand and use different words and concepts when it comes to pain, even though it's universal, we all feel it. But how we interpret it and how we learn how to feel it and all these things is definitely culturally specified. But by the end of the day, when somebody comes in my gym and they struggle with something, whatever that is, reaching a hand out or making them know that you care for them, and you try your best to create a good space for them. I have not seen any issues there. Actually, since we also have a dog, then we have now quite
Yes, Yuki.
some Muslim populations that the parents are afraid of dogs, but they don't want their kids to be afraid of dogs. So they're like, they bring their 3-year-olds also for what we offer, but also because they've heard Yuki is there. And she plays there a big role. So far in the way how we approach things, we haven't necessarily. I mean, we work with the people we want to work with, because I also don't want to work with everybody. But so far, the people that we have, and we have really people from all kinds of different countries that all live here in Germany. So we have a very mixed. I think our school is more mixed cultural wise than other gyms, and I think it's because of safety and we train the person in front of us. And I don't, for me, I all care about behavior. I don't really care where you come from, all these things, as long as the behavior is, we want to grow together and we want a fun, safe space, then it will work out.
I really hope one day I can come and see this because it sounds like such a special place to be able to train and just feel safe. I can see in the way that you speak about it that the culture there sounds really unique. And yeah, I think that's a really big testament to you and your partner in the way that you have created this based on the evidence that you have. And yeah, thank
It
you for
wasn't
what you do.
easy. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you too. But I mean, was it easy? We had our little dramas and things to figure out. But the thing is, every school will have that. You're busy with people. But I think what people have to understand, that we always use like, no, everybody uses as a marketing tool, like, oh, come here, you have community. But what is community? Just because you put people together doesn't mean you have community. It's a practice. And it means that also when something goes wrong, you need to, if harm took place or whatever, you need to also learn how to repair. And that's kind of what we have been learning also, is just how it's a practice. We had things didn't work out. It wasn't necessarily very ultra dramatic or anything, but every school will have some things. Maybe some students have an issue with each other. Something like this happened, that happened, the parents are angry about this. I don't know, we had once two kids that came because one kid was earlier because he got bullied by the other kids, and then the parents were like very unhappy when because suddenly they saw each other because they were picking up their kid. Like, these are all kinds of conflicts that we also have to learn, and sometimes we handle it better than other times. But I think every healthy school has their challenges. Things happen, doesn't mean that nothing happens, but when it happens, we have a protocol, we know how to proceed, and we also adapt and learn. When it didn't go really as planned or as we hoped to, we go back to the drawing table, think about it, talk about it. I have a big group of people from other, I have psychologists, I've so many people. I have a good, I call my mastermind group, and I ask them things. I'm like, hey, this happened, this wasn't ideal, what can we do better? I love feedback. I love always feedback, because that's how it is. When I don't know something, or I sense like, mad, I don't think this was the right approach, I'll just look for people that may help me. They may not have the answer, but they can guide me. And I think that's why the gym is now as it is. So that's like a lot of hard work and but practice, because community is an ongoing practice.
Yeah. Yeah, that resonates with me a lot. And as somebody whose gym has only been opened for 2 years, I do sometimes feel like we make mistakes, you learn from them, and when you know better, you do better. And when you're in those beginning stages, those things happen more often than not because you are still learning. And as we spoke about in the beginning, you have a belt, but it doesn't mean that you know how to run a business. And my partner and I found that out as we opened the gym, and we were like, I still remember I had to get a lawyer for the lease, even to get a lease on of
Mhm.
where we was going. I'd never had a lawyer. So even just having to learn how to navigate that and the communication styles and all of those things in a professional way, it really does teach you a lot.
Yeah.
And yeah, yeah, 100%. And before I go, I do have to ask, what kind of dog is Yuki?
He's an English Springer Spaniel.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
And she's really a coach. We have Merkatsu also made a very cool rash guard with her for us. But she greets people, but she's a very good uke. So also on our TOA Instagram, you can also see that we also teach show games with her. There are moments, some games she also does with when we do like a rope tugging, or when we try to
oh my
steal
goodness.
tags or something. She understands these games, she goes with. Sometimes she also plays with the kids. She's like, she loves 3 to 5 year olds. Nobody knows really why, because for dogs it's usually like the scariest
Yeah.
age, because they don't really know where they're going. So but she loves them. But also with the adults, and she's good in jiu-jitsu, because when I wear a gi, she can do kimuras on me and stuff. She grabs
No
this and she puts
way.
it there. So she's really a coach. But also one time, I can say that briefly, we had two kids, they were doing jiu-jitsu sparring, and for I don't know what caused it, but it escalated. I mean, thank God they remained within the bounds of jiu-jitsu, but it was real fighting as far as jiu-jitsu goes. So we were already going there to separate them, but she saw it, she ran to them, she jumped in between, really had woof, woof, it was over. And then she went back into her
Whoa.
basket. So she is very because we have also people with trauma, but also other kids, she can sense and when something is happening before you can see it. So she also shows and signals to us. So it helps us a lot with kids class, because if something is going on with a kid, but also with an adult, she already shows it. And so that helps us to give the people the care they need. So it wasn't by design. I'm born and raised basically with having spaniels in my life, but we just wanted one, but she just showed those early on as a puppy that she just did that. And we were like, yeah, well then if she does it anyways, let's harness it. So yeah,
Oh,
she's a coach.
I could only wish that my 2-year-old Labrador would behave well enough to be able to do that. He comes to the gym but he can't hang out with the kids because he's such high energy that he wants to. He's more chaotic than all of the kids put together. I hope one day that my dog can become like yours.
She will. I mean, Yuki, she was, I mean, she's a working dog, a hunting dog. So she's high
Mm,
energy too. But somehow, as a puppy, she realized that when she would run and get the zoomies, the kids would freak out. So
mm.
she stopped. She realized that
She's
that freaked them
amazing.
out. She's just so clever because when you see her outside, I mean, she puts the pace. I mean, like she is,
Yeah,
but somehow in the gym, she just knows how to calmness, soothing. She
yeah,
taught me a lot about self-regulation
yeah.
because she just knows when it's too much, she goes into a different room. But also when we went to the zoo in Netherlands once, when she got tired, she saw a bench, she jumps on the bench, closed her eyes for 5 minutes. And then later she's like, okay, I'm good to go. She just self-regulates herself like that. I don't know where she learned it. I don't know. But she's really just special.
It's incredible. Honestly, so cool. Thank you so much for chatting with
You
me. I
too.
have really, really enjoyed this conversation.
Me
And
too.
I hope that we can keep in touch. I'm going to keep the links for everything that you've said below in our YouTube and everything like that. But please keep in touch. Let's keep this moving. I'm definitely keen to learn some of the resources and things like that too. So thank you
And
for your time.
likewise. So thank
Yeah,
you too
thank
for
you
your
so much.
time.
Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.